This is Robert Kraft, and I'm coming to you live on SNNLive, and we're here at the Sidoti Spring 2016 Emerging Growth Convention in New York City. With me right now is Stephanie Kushner from Broadwind Energy. The symbol is BWEN. Stephanie, welcome to SNNLive.
Thank you, Robert.
It's great to have you on our program. So for our audience, I'd love to get an overview of the company.
Sure. Broadwind is about a $200 million industrial manufacturer, and the largest product line that we have is we make the towers, the big steel towers that hold up the wind turbines. So we manufacture these 300-foot-long towers for companies like GE and Siemens and Gamesa, for example.
Okay, so that's a good start. Let's go from there. So before we go a little further, I want to know the history of the company. How did it come to start developing these big towers?
The company's been around since probably 2006, 2007. At that time, there was a vision by a large, actually still a current shareholder, that the wind energy business in North America was new, and because most wind towers, wind energy started in Europe, a lot of those European wind turbine manufacturers were coming to the U.S., and the supply chain was not at all well developed. So the concept was roll up a bunch of companies that are in the supply chain area, do a reverse merger into a public shell, create a public company, and grow from there. Unfortunately, it happened right before the crash in 2008-9, and the company went into a bit of a tailspin, and we've been recovering and generating positive cash flow for the last several years, and hoping to cross over into profitability very soon here.
Okay, so let's talk about the technology a little bit. I mean, is what the company is currently developing, is it any different than what's currently been on the market in Europe and been around for a while?
The wind energy business is still a relatively young business. So as you can imagine, the turbines, the towers, the technology is still on a very steep learning curve. So our part of the supply chain, the tower, we also make gears that go into the gearboxes, are changing very, very fast. There's constant re-engineering improvements, in part to bring the cost of wind energy down so that it's more competitive with fossil fuels and, starts to get an increasing market share.
And what goes into the construction of these towers?
Yeah.
I mean, what's the material used?
It's interesting. Some investors look and say, how hard could that be? It's just a tube, you stick it in the ground, you put this. In fact, of course, imagine a structure that's as long as a football field, and it's tapered, and it has to be extremely precise. You're welding, you're bending and welding and fabricating steel that might be 2 inches thick, a steel plate. The process between the welding and the painting is it's highly precise labor. I mean, we have laborers who are in many instances craftsmen who are putting these together. We have 500 people who over the course of a year will build maybe 450 towers. The tolerances are very, very tight. So we might have a tolerance that says that lining up one section to another section has to be, plus or minus half of a millimeter, and that's across a diameter that is 13 feet wide. So highly precise and very complex manufacturing.
And where do you guys manufacture right now?
We have two plants, one up in Manitowoc, Wisconsin, which was the site of an old shipyard, so there's a good source of welding talent there. And then the other is in Abilene, Texas, and that is right in the heart of a very big wind district. And frankly, those two locations are kind of on the north and south end of the wind corridor in the U.S., where the greatest wind resource is.
So is the company also the landowners or the contractors? How does that work?
No, we are a supplier to GE or Siemens, for example, who is building the entire wind turbine, and they in turn are then selling those to the guys who are developing the wind farms. The landowners are typically farmers or whoever, and the wind farm contracts with the landowner and pays them an annual rent for having a wind turbine on their land.
So let's talk about that customer base a little bit. You mentioned GE and a few others. So I want to know, how do you plan on growing that customer base, and what's a typical order size? I know you just had one recently.
The order sizes vary tremendously because sometimes we are, some customers will buy all the towers they need for one large project, and maybe that project has say 200 towers in it, and if there are 200 towers, a tower is about $350,000. It would be a $70 million order. Sometimes we have an order for something that's either a small wind farm, or maybe wind farms are scalable. So you can start with a wind farm and decide to increase the capacity and maybe add 10 more towers. So then you have a $3 or $4 million order. So it's highly variable. It depends on the nature of the actual wind resource. It depends on the buying pattern of the customer.
And is there like I guess a guarantee or something like that where, as soon as you deliver the product, is there something where now the new owner can say after 2 years, like, oh, it's not working properly, can you come in and do like a fixing it up or something like that?
We do provide a warranty on everything that we make, yes. However, the wind tower, once you get it up and it's operational, the chances of having something happen are pretty slim.
Okay.
We haven't had a lot of call on any warranty issues, which is good.
And another question on that note, though, because I'm trying to figure out, what is the recurring model potentially? Where is it that your current customer base you can continue to sell to them? Obviously it's scaling up to adding more towers, but is there anything else that you then offer so that you can continue to build on that relationship?
So there's really two things. Right now, wind energy only accounts for about 5% of the energy generated in the U.S. If you go to somewhere like Germany, I think it's more like 20%. Or I think up in Denmark, it might be 30+%. So there's still a big runway in terms of the growth of the initial installation. Now, the other thing, however, that occurs, wind energy has started in the U.S. in the 70s, and these were smaller turbines. So there are instances where they are, repurposing, taking out a small turbine and putting in a large one. A turbine today can provide the electricity to support 400 homes. So they're very substantial.
And so I also want to know your background. How did you get into this?
So I started my career in oil and gas and mining, so a lot of more traditional industries, and then I was actually in the chemical business for a while. I joined Broadwind almost 7 years ago, and what was interesting, I was at a point in my career I was looking for something a little bit different, a little more challenging. I was willing to take on a little more risk, and it excited me to be in an industry, to go into an industry where the rules were still being written, where things weren't already pre-planned. I think I'd been in so many industries where everyone knew it would be done this way or that way or the other way, and in wind energy, it's still kind of the Wild West.
And I also want to know, what are some of the growth drivers for your business?
Probably the biggest growth driver, well, right now we have about we have a runway going up to 2021 for wind energy where it's being very much supported by legislation that was put in place at the end of last year. And it's legislation that supports a production tax credit for wind energy, which will phase down and be gone by 2021. When that is behind us, and that provides a certain amount of support. In the meantime, the turbines are getting more and more efficient, and also there are pressures on carbon, and there's the Clean Power Plan that we've all heard about recently that's being embraced. And then probably the last thing, what's been exciting in the last 15 months or so has been that a number of large corporations have gone out and they've just unilaterally decided that they want to lock into long-term wind energy because it makes sense. So companies, it started with companies like Apple or Amazon, and during 2015 we saw companies like Walmart and IKEA who have said, okay, maybe today wind is a little bit more expensive than a natural gas, but natural gas, who knows what's going to happen to those prices for 20 years from now, whereas I know wind energy, the wind is always going to be free. So they're willing to pay some premium for that, And of course, it doesn't help that it's a green initiative.
And one other thing that I also wanted to ask you about is, last year we heard there was some news that you guys put out there. I wanted to give you the opportunity to address that. So can you comment?
Well, we had some fairly serious production issues in 2015 down in Abilene. We struggled with a major contract. It wasn't a good fit for our facility there. The specifications on it, particularly with respect to painting, were very tight for that facility. And our production slowed down to a crawl, and we actually lost $10 million on that contract. So it took our tower business, instead of generating $20 million with the EBITDA, we generated under 10, and it was a tough time for us. The good news is that contract is finished. The plant is full now, it's operating at full capacity, and we're confident that that's behind us.
I'm just curious, what's the cost to make one of these turbines?
The turbine itself is a little over, about $2.25 million for the full turbine. So the tower is a material piece of it, but of course the blades are also a large piece of it, and the gearbox is.
Okay, so we're in 2016. From what you can tell me, what are some of the goals and milestones going for the company for the rest of the year?
I think our number one focus is to be profitable. I think we're taking about $8 million of cost out this year versus last year. We expect to double our orders from last year. Last year we were still living off some orders that we had taken back in late 2013, early 2014, and we're building momentum there. And we are putting in processes that will ensure that the type of production issues we've had in the past with new tower model introductions will not be a problem.
And where can our audience go and find more information about the company?
So Broadwind Energy, it's BWEN, and please visit our website.
And what is it again?
BWEN, Broadwind Energy.
That's BWEN.com. My name is Robert Kraft, and I'm coming to you live on SNNLive, and we're here at the Sidoti Spring 2016 Emerging Growth Convention in New York City. With me again has been Stephanie Kushner from Broadwind Energy. The symbol is BWEN. Thank you so much for coming on to SNNLive.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Robert.
Thank you.